Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely cinematic story of cyber survival. We're looking at an incident where the wild, unpredictable digital world collided head-on with cold, calculated engineering discipline. We're going to break down the fascinating case study of oloavd-stanley, which is a marine engineering resource run by a retired marine engineer who goes by the name oloavd-stanley. Imagine steering a ship through perfectly calm waters for years, entirely dedicated to safely guiding others, only to suddenly find pirates at the helm. How do you even respond to that? Do you panic? Or do you fall back on a lifetime of rigorous technical training to take your ship back?
Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand the stakes of this cyber rescue, we have to look at the creator's own words. You see, Alpha Delphi wasn't some massive corporate giant or a huge e-commerce platform. No, it was a deeply personal legacy project. Built by a retired marine engineer, it was designed as an altruistic harbor. It was literally his way of giving back to the community, sharing past Class 1 and Class 2 examination questions, practical knowledge, and invaluable real-world sea experience with the next generation of marine engineers.
Part 1. The Calm Seas, a Decade of Education. For a very long time, this site was a quiet, vital educational harbor. Think of it like a digital desk piled high with marine engineering books and meticulously organized exam papers. Students of maritime engineering could come to oloavd-stanley to study, to learn the ropes from someone who had spent their entire life managing the massive engines that power global shipping. And this wasn't just some fleeting weekend project. We are talking about over a decade of building, nurturing, and maintaining this repository of knowledge. And honestly, in internet time, 10 years is an absolute eternity. It represents thousands of days of safe operation, thousands of students helped, and an incredibly stable digital environment. But, as we see so often in the realm of cybersecurity, stability can sometimes breed a false sense of absolute security. And those calm seas were about to be violently interrupted.
Part 2. The Mayday Call. A Sudden Hijack.
Then, one morning, the digital storm hit without any warning whatsoever. The captain of Alpha Delphi opens his browser to do a routine check on his life's work, completely expecting to see his familiar homepage. Instead, the screen metaphorically turns red. Just think about the stark contrast here. On one hand, you have his pure educational mission. On the other, a flashing, loud, full-blown online gambling platform that had just completely paved over a decade of hard work. At first, he thought it was just a temporary glitch. Maybe a weird browser error, but no matter how many times he hit refresh, that gambling site just sat there, staring back at him. The shock of this is just wild. It's the digital equivalent of waking up to find your quiet neighborhood library has been turned into a loud casino overnight.
That initial shock very quickly escalated into genuine alarm. Trying to fix what he still assumed was just a massive error, he attempted to log into his hosting control panel. And right there, that's when he received the ultimate Mayday signal: password rejected. Let that sink in for a second. For anyone running a website, seeing those two words means the locks have been changed from the inside. It meant someone else had taken total, complete control of the digital ship he had captained for over 10 years. The sheer panic of being locked out of your own creation like that, it's profound.
Part 3. Entering the Engine Room, System Diagnosis.
And this brilliantly illustrates where the story shifts from a standard hacking tragedy into a total masterclass in crisis response. Because instead of panicking, the site owner relied on cold, calculated engineering logic. He approached the cyber investigation the exact same way he was trained to diagnose a stalled, massive ship engine in the middle of the ocean. He conceptually puts his hard hat on and enters the digital engine room, following a strict diagnostic procedure. Step 1. He checked the domain ownership records. The result? The domain still belonged to him. It hadn't been legally stolen or transferred away. So that provided a crucial glimmer of hope. Step 2. After getting on the phone with his hosting provider to reset his password and regain control panel access, he accessed the server files directly. Step 3. Once he was inside, he conducted a deep, rigorous inspection, comparing it to the kind of thorough check he would perform during a physical machinery survey on an actual vessel. During this methodical machinery survey, he makes this vital, super stabilizing discovery. The original index.html file, the very core of his marine engineering content, was still sitting right there on the server, completely untouched. The hackers hadn't actually destroyed his life's work. The ship wasn't sunk. Instead, they had just rigged the navigation. Visitors trying to reach his educational content were simply being hijacked and forcefully redirected to the external gambling platform. The knowledge was perfectly safe. It was just hidden behind a really malicious detour.
So, digging deeper into those hidden folders filled with gambling images and banners, he finally found the true culprit. He uncovered a heavily obfuscated PHP backdoor file. Now, what does that actually mean? It basically means the code was cleverly disguised to hide its malicious intent from casual observation. This file was the enemy within the gates. It was the active mechanism that was forcibly redirecting his traffic and, super dangerously, giving the hackers ongoing control over parts of his hosting server. It was literally a digital parasite just feeding off his website's good reputation.
Part 4. Clearing the wreckage. Systematic cleanup.
With the enemy identified, the diagnosis phase ended and the action phase kicked into high gear. The hosting account had been compromised, sure, but the captain was finally back in the control room. Now, what's really interesting here is how this cleanup process perfectly mirrors physical engineering discipline. First, he identified and aggressively ripped out every single suspicious folder and file. Second, he dove straight into the configuration files and corrected those hidden redirect rules. Third, that obfuscated PHP backdoor, deleted completely, no mercy. But step 4 is the most telling of all. He reviewed every unfamiliar file line by line. In his own write-up, he specifically compares this meticulous process to checking a ship's logbook for anomalies. Only when every single line of code was accounted for could he be absolutely sure the ship was truly clean.
Part 5. Reinforcing the hull, post-attack security.
Slowly but surely, the original Alphadelphia emerged from the wreckage. He refreshes the main domain, and there it is. The clean, familiar marine engineering homepage loading up seamlessly. The gambling content was vaporized. The knowledge preserved for his students was back online. But a good engineer knows that just fixing a hole in the hull isn't enough, right? You have to reinforce it so it doesn't breach again. To make sure the perimeter was truly hardened, he took 4 absolutely critical steps. First, he changed all access points to strong, entirely unique passwords. Second, he conducted a full top-to-bottom security audit of the website files. Third, he smartly installed a new favicon, that little icon up in your browser tab, so search engines and browsers would correctly identify the real restored site. And finally, the ultimate safety net, he created fresh, reliable backups. He recognized that even small, niche educational websites are active targets in today's digital ocean, and they've got to be hardened accordingly. Which brings us to the core takeaway of this entire explainer, perfectly summarized by oloavd-stanley himself. As engineers, we protect systems at sea every day. We must protect our digital assets with the same discipline. This whole incident proved that technical principles like staying calm, diagnosing systematically, reviewing logs meticulously, and reinforcing weak points are universally applicable. The attack definitely interrupted Alphadelphia's journey, but because of the captain's rigorous engineering discipline, it absolutely did not end it.
Today, that marine engineering resource continues its mission, stronger and vastly more secure than ever before. But this story leaves us with a really critical reflection for our own lives. Whether it's a personal blog, a small business site, or just your own private data, your digital assets are currently out there, floating in the vast, unpredictable cyber sea. So you have to ask yourself, are they protected with that same rigorous, uncompromising engineering discipline? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. And remember, keep your digital ships